Hi friends, welcome back. Today we are making something like Xerjoff 40 Knots, a fragrance that was released in 2012. It is supposedly woody, marine, salty, aromatic, and green. I cannot find who perfumed this fragrance, which is a real bummer. I'm looking on Fragrantica, which is, of course, the ultimate source for all fragrance knowledge. I can see the search trend for this particular fragrance has really increased in the last couple years. But I can't see who perfumed it, which is a big bummer. I'm also interested that this is called a woody marine, but the only marine note I'm getting, or the marine ingredient that I'm getting, is Ambroxan. There's no Calone Helianal, Melanal, Floral Ozone, Ultrazure. There's none of the ozonic marine ingredients that typically go into a marine fragrance. So I'm very interested to see how this turns out. I found this formula on Reddit. Have no idea where it came from. I've made a couple modifications. For one, I've added Hedione HC. I've also taken out some of the constituent individual aroma chemicals like myrcene, cynine, pinene, and I've put in Angelica Root. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but I know that if you do a GCMS breakdown of Angelica Root, its proportions are pretty close to some of those, to the proportions of those molecules that I removed. So I figured, why not? Other than that, this is a long formula, relatively long, and I'm looking forward to putting this together. If we look at the structure of the fragrance, 75% are in base notes. That's what I call notes that last over 100 hours on a strip. Another 10% are in the bottom notes between 50 to 100 hours. 10% middle notes, around between 10 and 50 hours, and then you got 5% in the top. Now, most of this is woody notes, but most of that is ISO-E Super. I believe ISO-E Super is 25%. 28% of the concentrate is in ISO-E Super. So most of that's ISO-E Super. We have some sweet notes. We have some musks, some white musks. So those are also pretty sweet. We have a good amount of amber materials, mostly in Ambroxan, Cedramber, and Karanal. Some floral notes. I don't know what to say. I have not smelled this. So let's just get started. Let's get started. And why not get started with our wood base? Let's start with our ISO-E Super. For this particular formula, I'm actually using Cedramber. I think it's a DRT product. It is another patchouli ethanone, but the isomer ratio is different in Cedramber than it is in ISO-E Super or timber silicon. Might have to go with another dip. Let's see. No? Wow, okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Done. Next up, we'll add our Olibanum, or frankincense from Somalia. I love the bright, kind of peppery, dry, woody, peppery top note in frankincense. Okay. Next up, let's do our Gurgen Balsam. Right. It's been a while since I've smelled Gurgen Balsam, though I know Doesn't smell like, it's not balsamic in the way that a lot of other balsams are, like a lot of other resins are. It's a little more woody, dry and woody. But it's a good material. It's a great fixative. Okay. Guaiyl acetate and Guaiacwood. Guaiyl acetate. Is it Guaiyl acetate and Guaiacwood, or is it Guaiacwood and Guaiyl acetate? Guaiyl acetate. I'm going to say that. Why not? This is a lot like the Guaiacwood, but without the smokiness. It's got that woody, tea-like, kind of that transparent, woody, almost aquatic woody feel, without the smokiness, which maybe comes from the Guaiacol, if I remember correctly. But take that with a grain of salt, because often I don't remember correctly. It's the thing about getting older and about memory in general. You sometimes mix things up. All right, now Guaiacwood. Yeah, smoky. Whenever I smell bacon, I think of Guaiacwood, and whenever I smell Guaiacwood, I think bacon. Smoked, cured bacon. Okay, nice, we're there. We are there. Now for this particular batch, I am making about 11 grams. And the end concentrate is going to be about a 22% concentrate. So I used the ISOE Super, or the Silvamber, is at 100%. I've got the Ambroxan's going to be at 100%. I have Ethylene Brassylate, and I've got some Hedione. Hedione at 50, but other stuff, you know, a few other things are at 100%. So I can boost the concentrate from a 10% dilution to a 20%. Cedarwood. Cedarwood. There we go. Okay. Looks like I forgot to grab the polysantol, so let's do it. All right. Not much polysantol. If you don't have polysantol, just use Bactinol, Ebinol, Sangenol. Okay. Polysantol is a very nice sandalwood note, sandalwood material. So let's continue with our you know what? No, I actually do want to smell this, but it's so heavy in Silvamber, I'm not actually certain I'm going to be able to pick up much off the strip when it dries. Let's add in, no, let's do our woods. We'll add in our musks and then our ambers. We'll do a few of these. Okay. Where's my pen? Here we go. All right, we're going to call this woods, and we'll let it chill. Move on. Next up, let's add our musks, and first is ethylene brassylate, or musk tea. Okay. Great. Now we have Exaltolide. I'm actually going to use Pentolide. It's the same molecule. I don't know why I purchased Pentolide or Macrolide Supra, but it's the same thing. And I want to use it up so I can clear out my materials fridge, my materials closet. I've got so much stuff that I'm learning. Some of it is superfluous. I can swap things out, or it's the same. It's just made by a different company. So I'm going to use this stuff up. So Exaltolide, there's a fair bit of this. About 9% of the formula is Exaltolide. Couple more drops. Here it is. Next up, Scenotlide, also known as Ambrettolide. Come on. I am due for a re-review, a revisit of the musk ingredients, at least the white musks. Right now I'm going through the animalic musks, doing smell testing, you know, documenting them over time, going through the animalic blends and the deer musks. I need to do the white musks afterwards. Okay. While we are here, do we add? Yes, we do. Let's actually, you know what? Let's do, yeah, we're going to do a lot of testers today. We're going to do a lot of testers. Why not? Instead of adding everything from the base and then testing, let's add little by little. Musk. So after musk, we're going to do the vanilla coumarin ethyl vanillin. So let's do vanillin. And then after that, we will do our ambers. Amber, and we're going to put balsam. You could classify vanilla as like balsamic. You could. But then what do I do with cistus? Is it ambery? Is it more balsamic? Because it's more smoky and aggressive than labdanum. I just don't know. All right, numbers. Let's do our vanillins. And keep going. All right. Vanillin, 1%. Okay, so this amount of vanillin is just meant to smooth things out. Not much else. There's a bit more ethyl vanillin, however, so this might be more of a contributing, you know, a contributing factor. Just over 1.5% of the juice is ethyl vanillin. Okay. Let's do our coumarin. Again, about 1.5% of the juice is in coumarin. I like coumarin because it reminds me of vanilla in that it is sweet, but it's a little bit sharper, brighter. And to my nose, there's a dampness is the wrong word. Wetness is also kind of the wrong word. Maybe aquatic is what I'm going for. But I get this difference in coumarin. It's not just a smell, but it's more of a feeling. which I really enjoy. All right, we're going to do one more. That's Heliotropin, otherwise known as piperonal. Got a 10% dilution here. It says also sweet. It's a bit more, waxy. You could say not like aldehydic waxy, a little bit more like salicylate waxy, and it's got a cherry vibe to it. Okay. Our sweets are done. We'll give it a little swirl. Okay. And we'll set it down. Okay, next up we have our ambery / balsamic materials. I'm thinking, however, I've got Isobornyl Acetate. I'm going to save this and put this with our top notes like pink pepper, the Angelica Root, so on and so forth. So we're going to start with Ambroxan. Now this particular Ambroxan is actually called Orchinox. It's from Maine, M-A-N-E, chemicals producer, Maine. Purchased this from FreighterWorks only because the marketing was so good. The picture was so good and their descriptions are always so fantastic. I figured that stuff looks amazing. I'll bet you this is way better than normal Ambroxan. I can't tell a difference. It's Ambroxan. Now, it does smell good. I will say that. And I'm not an Ambroxan connoisseur. Only recently have I been testing Ambroxan versus Ambrox Super versus Orchinox versus Ambrox DL versus Cedarwood, etc. So I've only been acquainting my nose with the subtle differences, if there are any, recently. So more work to do there. Now this is, of course, 100%. It's crystal. I do not know the weight per, visually speaking, so I'm only going to put in a little bit here and there. But this is 6.5% of the juice is in this Ambroxan. Okay, so I need basically 2 of those. False, I need 3. Okay. Got it. Got it. Next up, Cedramber, or cedryl methyl ether. Very elegant, wonderful material. Okay, and then next, Karanal from Givaudan, otherwise known as amber dioxane. Another woody, ambery, dry. So many of these are the same in that they're ambery and that they're like soft and sweet, but they're also a little bit woody, sometimes peppery, dry, and they are all just variations on a theme. Some of them are a bit more sweet than others. Okay. And now, interestingly, Cistus. Cistus is about 1%. Now, this is, if you're looking at formulas, sometimes you'll see Cisti, C-I-S-T-E, or you'll see Cistus. It all comes from the same plant, Cistus ladaniferus. Now, Cistus is the essential oil of Cistus ladaniferus. Labdanum is the absolute, or the resin, or whatever it is. It is not the essential oil from Cistus ladaniferus. It is a solvent extracted or otherwise processed material. The smells have similarities, but they also have differences. The Cistus I have is more aggressive than the Labdanum. It's smokier, a little more full in the nose, I would say. A little more almost camphorous or camphoraceous. But there's a little more aggression with Cistus versus Labdanum. But what we're doing here with our Cistus and our other sweet notes, we're making an amber accord. Okay, that's all. Nice and easy. Now let's see if we can get our Ambroxan to dissolve, or our Orchanox to dissolve. Yeah, that's coming along. If you're new to perfumery, it's going to be pretty hard to get an Ambroxan dilution, anything more than 10% in ethanol. I haven't tried diluting it in triethyl citrate, dipropylene glycol, whatever, isopropyl myrcetate. I've only tried ethanol, and I know that once you get past 10% concentration, there's crystals in the ethanol. Kind of like you can't put too much sugar in water. Sooner or later, that water can't absorb more sugar. Sooner or later, that ethanol cannot absorb more ambroxide. Okay. Wonderful. I'm going to hold off on evaluating. What I would like to do next is take stock of where we're at. So we have floral materials, a lot of them. We have some aromatic and green materials. We've got some filler. Pardon me. We have our clear top notes, but then I also have some spicy notes. So I'm wondering how to pair these together. I think what we'll do is we're going to build out let's do the Hedione. That's a big part. It's just over 9% of the formula is our Hedione. And then we will add our aromatic / green notes. Okay, let's do that. Let's start with our Hedione. I've got 2 Hediones. This formula only called for Hedione, but I'm going to use a pairing of Hedione and Hedione HC. These are both at 50% dilution. Again, I do that just so I can boost the end concentrate to my target of 20%. Of course, I'll be coming in just over target. We'll be at around 22%, but that's okay. I can add a little bit of ethanol if I need to, if I really want to get it down to 20. And actually, that might not be a bad idea. Oh, Hedione is magical. And in fact, I want to smell this with the Hedione edition. So I added the Hedione HC, and now I'm just doing the normal Hedione. It's got a little bit less pop than the Hedione HC. I feel like Hedione HC, or Hedione in general, is like it's like reverb for vocals. If you got a vocalist and you're like, yeah, they're not amazing. Like Adele, her vocals can be very dry. You hear it clearly in your ear. Other vocalists, their tone isn't so warm, so you got to add some effects. One of the effects is just add a whole bunch of reverb. Add more reverb than you think you need, and it really does magic for vocals. I feel like Hedione is like the reverb for a fragrance. How's that fragrance doing? Kind of like whatever. I know, Hedione, reverb. All right, we're just gonna write Hedione. We'll give it a dip, and here I will evaluate. Let's start with our woods. Okay, to start off, this is very, very nice. Now this was straightforward woods, ISOE Super And I'm getting that ambery sandalwood from the Cedramber, from the Isoe Super. But the Guaiacwood is coming through with the Guaiyl Acetate. It's coming through nicely. The cedarwood's barely noticeable. That dry cedarwood is barely noticeable, but I'm getting some umami from the Guaiacwood. Next up, we added our musks, Ethylene Brassylate, Exaltolide, and Scenotlide. And this just adds a sweetness, a musky sweetness, to the base of our woods. Okay. Still, Guaiacwood is coming through strong. Let's see what happens when we add our vanilla. Now the sweets from the vanilla, Coumarin, Ethyl Vanillin, Coumarin, and Heliotropin definitely move it in a vanilla sweet direction. And it subdues the Guaiacwood, which interestingly, in like vanilla absolute, if you were to make a vanilla absolute accord, I believe it's helpful to add some of those smoky facets into your vanillin. It helps open it up, give it more realism, give it a little bit more oomph. Now we added our amber materials and the cistus. Okay, that cistus is I won't say overpowering, but it's forward. It is definitely forward. Finally, let's see what happens with our Hedione addition. The Hedione calms down the edge of the cistus. But again, just building on top. But that's interesting. The Hedione takes the edge of cistus. When you smell cistus, it's that camphorous type, bright, edgy note. And the Hedione puts a nice blanket on top of it. Brightens up everything else, but it does put a little dampening on the Guaiacwood. I'm sorry, on the cistus. So next up, let's do our aromatics and our greens. There's a lot of dihydromyrcenol in this. It's 3 and change %. So let's do that. All right, dihydromyrcenol. Done. Wonderful. Next up, let's add our Angelica Root. Do I want to? It's so bright. The Angelica Root is so bright. There's so much pining in here. It's like a bright lemony pickle is what I smell when I smell Angelica Root. I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it with the mandarin, the orange. There's not much. The ethyl acetate, isobornyl acetate. Next up, let's move to the armoise or the mugwort or artemisia. There's not much in here. Not much in here at all. I do like artemisia. Believe it's a relative of wormwood. And there's not much. Not much in here. Next up, caraway. Again, not much caraway. I need to do a revisit of caraway. Okay. We are good. Next up, again, not much, 1,8-cineol or eucalyptol. There's even less in here. Now, whenever I see this kind of material, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if there's really a natural material. Maybe there's eucalyptus oil in this. which contains eucalyptol. But what are you going to do? I don't have the formula. We just have a GCMS interpretation of the formula, or we have a GCMS analysis of the formula, and then an interpretation of the GCMS analysis. A lot goes into demystifying these formulas. Next up, Linalyl Acetate. Okay. All right. Again, another one, oregano. This is the first time I'm using oregano in a formula. And there's not much. Not much at all. There we go. I'm going to do a few more. Galbanum, which is definitely green. 0.05% of the formula. Galbanum oil is, much to my nose, a little brighter, a little more top-heavy, so to speak, than galbanum resinoid. The resinoid is a bit darker, a bit more resinous, if you can believe it. You do need to be careful with galbanum. You can overdose it. You don't want to go back to the 70s, okay? Don't want to go back to the 70s and just have galbanum everywhere. I've got two more. Ethyl Linalool. This is more of a sweet metallic filler. I'm reading a book by, I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly, Arkady Bois Camp. Someone please help with the pronunciation there. And I love the way he classifies materials, because he just puts things together in the way I'm like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. For example, floral herbal or herbal florals, like linalool, ethyl linalool. Like, that is perfect. That is exactly what that is. It's not floral, it's not herbal, it's somewhere in between. It's an herbal floral. Wow, that is absolutely perfect. 0.828 grams. 0.828 grams. That is perfect. That happens rarely. Also, he had like the animalistic florals, like paracressyl phenyl acetate, you know? And I'm like, yes, it's exactly what it is. It's a floral material, but it's also animalic. It's like, what is it? It's an animalic floral. So thank you, Arkady. Drop linalool. Okay. I think we're done with those. We're going to do 3 more groups after we test this. So what did we put? This was our aromatic and green. And this was number 6. So we'll dip these last 4 and then we will evaluate all at once. So the smell that I'm getting out right now, just from all of this, is, this smells good. It smells like a cologne we're brewing. Can't quite tell the personality yet. It's just a nice smelling fragrance. Let's do our florals next. The red florals, we have like geraniol, geranyl acetate, nerol, phenyl ethyl alcohol, and then paracressyl methyl ether or paramethyl anisole. And then our, iris violet materials, isoraldeine, methyl ionone alpha. It's my first time using methyl ionone alpha instead of methyl ionone gamma. So I wonder if that was a GCMS misinterpretation, that it said alpha isomethyl ionone. Alpha isomethyl ionone is not methyl ionone alpha. It is methyl ionone gamma. But I don't know what methyl ionone alpha is. I don't actually know what that molecule is. So if you know, share it with the team. Okay, share it with the class, please. All right, let's start with our methylionone alpha extra. Probably a drop and a splash of this. I gave this a smell before I put it in here with the materials. It's been so long since I've used this. Like, did this go bad? It's probably been a year and a half since I've even opened this. So it's still good, my friends. Next up, Isoraldeine 70. Isoraldeine is just another word for N-methylionone. There's so many methylionones. I don't know what the 70 means though. There's Isoraldeine 70 and there's Isoraldeine 75. I have a suspicion that has to do with how much N-methylionone there is versus some other methylionone that might be in the mixture. It's probably a ratio of molecules or isomers or something. But I don't know what the other molecule or other material is. Okay, we are good. Whew. Those ionones are strong. Para-methyl anisole. This is nice. This is one of those animalic florals. It's narcotic. It's like what you smell in ylang-ylang or lilac that gives a deep, warm richness to the floral scent. Okay, 0.03. It's about 2 drops. We'll see. Okay, got a little more. Now, there's one material I have excluded, and that is dimethyl benzyl carbinol. I do not have that material. I have dimethyl benzyl carbonyl acetate and dimethyl benzyl carbonyl butyrate, but I do not have just the dimethyl benzyl carbonyl. I will pick it up soon, but the fact that there is only 0.01% or less, there's 0.003 grams of this at a 10% dilution in the formula, I don't think I'm going to miss it. My nose will not miss it. So, no harm, no foul. Next up, Citronellol. Looks like we are making a little rose accord here. We have our citronellol, we have a little damascenone, we have our geraniol, we have phenyl ethyl alcohol, the little phenyl ethyl acetate. We are making a rose accord. All right, so the citronellol, 1.5% of the juice. Okay, so there's going to be a good little rosy bit in here. Now, what will be interesting is, can we smell the rose? Does the rose serve as its own formal note to be detected and enjoyed in the fragrance? Or is the rose in there simply to help beef up the center of the fragrance so that there's something pleasant and floral to smell? That is the question. Damascenone total. What a wonderful material. Sweet, fruity. It's like rich plum. Nice, ripe apple, plum. It's just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And you do not need much of this. Okay. Getting crowded over here. Next up, Geraniol. Okay. Yeah. It's interesting. You take citronellol and you go, oh yeah, that smells like rose. You take phenyl ethyl alcohol and you're like, okay, yeah, it's rosy. You take geraniol, you're like, definitely, that's rosy too. But they are all different facets of a rose. And when you put them together in different proportions, along with phenyl ethyl acetate, phenyl acetate, Nerol, all the other stuff, then you get something interesting. Okay, I grabbed the wrong material. We'll get to that in a second. Next up, let's do our Geraniol acetate. Ooh, this might be just a mess. So I once was looking at a GCMS analysis by Christoph Lodemiel, who did Abercrombie and Fitch. Fierce. He's done some great great fragrances. And he had basically, the GCMS had all of the molecules, and he had highlighted some. And next to some of these highlights, he made notes about the particular molecules. And I was very interested that in this particular fragrance was a lot of citronellol. And next to Nerol, Geraniol, Guaiyl Acetate, he had made notes. Contaminated citronellol, or I don't think it was adulterated. It was like, this is probably coming from the citronellol that was added to the formula. And it got me thinking, okay, maybe the citronellol, ethyl phenol, there it is. Maybe the citronellol, was extracted from whatever. And a part of that extraction, it just wasn't 100% citronellol. You get some impurities. That's what I'm looking for, impurities. And so now I think about that. Whenever I see trace amounts of Geraniol acetate, 0.008% of the juice is Geraniol acetate. Is it really in here? Or is it a contamination, an impurity of the geraniol, or an impurity of the citronellol? Don't know. Nerol. I do like Nerol. The molecule is very similar to Geraniol, if I remember correctly, but it's a bit brighter, a bit fruitier. All right, phenyl ethyl alcohol, almost 2% of the juice. So yeah, we are making a rose accord. I know I said that already, but I'm reiterating it because I'm running out of things to say. I'm kidding. I'm not running out of things to say. All right, phenyl ethyl alcohol is done. Ooh, and I tell you what, I'm getting a very nice breeze, very nice projection out of this little beaker here. It smells good. Phenyl ethyl phenyl acetate. Just going to be 2 drops. Okay. Give it a little mix. We'll give it a dip. Okay. We're going to say rose and violet. This is number 7. Okay. We are going to do 2 more. First, I'm going to do the spicy notes. And I'm going to include our dirty note. Remember, every fragrance has a dirty note. You could say that the paracresyl methyl ether or the para-methyl anisole is kind of our dirty animalic note, but there's also cumin in this fragrance, cumin seed. I'm going to underdose the cumin seed just by a touch because I've noticed, and I don't know if it's just my particular cumin, the cumin note is too forward in all of the stuff that I use this in. And I trust the quality of many of the formulas that I'm reviewing. So getting a too strong cumin note in the blends makes me think that something's up with my cumin. Maybe I need to do another dilution. Could be it. But it's a little strong, so I'm going to back off a little bit. Okay. Let's start with caryophyllene. Caryophyllene beta. Again, this is probably just a constituent molecule in one of the naturals that was used, and couldn't figure out what natural it was, or the ratios just didn't seem to work. So they just said, you know what, we'll just add in the raw material. That's my assumption. Next, cinnamon. There's 2 types of cinnamon, cinnamon bark and cinnamon leaf. I don't see cinnamon leaf that often. Most of the time it's just cinnamon bark. There's only 1 drop of cinnamon bark in here. All right, that juice is strong. Thinking I should not have done a 20% concentrate, 22% concentrate, whatever it is. I'm gonna have to add some perfumer's alcohol, dilute that. That is very strong. It's throwing. Okay, cinnamon leaf. All right. Smells a lot like cinnamon bark. A lot like it. Just a little bit greener to my nose. A little bit more waxy. All right, cumin. Not adding much. I'm going to add 2 drops. I should be adding 3, but I'm going to cut it off at 2 because I don't trust my cumin. Okay. Note this as spice. Now I still have pink pepper, but I don't count pink pepper as a spice per se. It's a little too bright. Lastly, we have 6 more materials, and these are really the top notes. Let's start with ethyl acetate. This is a fruity molecule, and it's got some pop. This helps things throw. Whew, yeah. I should do everyone a favor, including myself, and just make a 1% dilution of this. But it's strong. Ethyl acetate, ethyl isobutyrate, ethyl 2-methyl butyrate. A lot of those have got some real pop to them. Let's do our isobornyl acetate. Now, the formula called for bornyl acetate. I don't have bornyl acetate. I have isobornyl acetate. So I'm going to use that. And there's such a little amount in here. I need 0.005 grams. I really like isobornyl acetate. It's balsamic, it's fruity, it's a little camphorous, it's bright, but there's a richness to it as well. It doesn't last long on a strip, but it smells very good. Next up, pink pepper. There's only a couple drops of pink pepper. Yeah. Okay. 3 more. Let's do our Angelica root. Finally. There's a lot of Angelica root in here. Yeah. I'm almost hesitant to put this in. The smell is right. When I smell pinene, alpha-pinene, paracymene, myrcene, a little limonene, when I smell all those together, in those proportions, it smells like Angelica root. We're missing the carine. I think that's how you say it. But, you know what? We're going to do it. Okay. Two more. Orange. Sweet. This orange, this particular sweet orange has a higher aldehyde content than some of the other orange I have. Okay. Beautiful color, beautiful smell. Orange is just a wonderful material. And then yellow mandarin. Not much yellow mandarin. Also has a nice citrus opening. Dies down into a very nice aldehyde note. But the opening is just a very nice citrus. Okay, friends, we're done. We are done. I'm going to grab back. Give it a little swishy. stir. I'm going to need this because I'm going to need to put some of it in a tester bottle. This will not fit in my 10 milliliter bottle. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of this on skin. Should really use lotion or moisturizer. I know that fragrance tends to hang on a little better if you use moisturizer, if your skin is moisturized. Dry skin doesn't hold on to fragrance very well. Okay, so let's go back. I've already smelled through the Hedione. If I remember correctly, the Hedione was just a mix of the woods, the musks, the sweets, and then the balsamic amber notes. And the Hedione really calmed down the cistus that was trying to push through. And that's still the case. But as it dries down, this is becoming a just wonderful, wonderful starting point. Next up, we added the aromatic and the green notes, including some of the furniture, the Ethyl Linalool, Linalyl Acetate, etc. And the Dihydromyrcenol. Pick that up immediately. This just takes it in the fresh direction immediately. This is very nice. We're headed in the great direction. Headed in a great direction. Now, boy, the dihydromyrcenol is strong combined with the Hedione. Let's see what happens when we put in that rose accord. Now, rose in fragrances tends to help support that center, you know, the center of the fragrance, and can help push and give your fragrance more body. I'm wondering how it's going to pair, how it's going to work here. Okay, I'm getting powdery. Definitely getting rose, definitely getting rose. But you combine the violet notes, the methyl ionones, with the sweet vanilla and the powdery cherry heliotropin, you get something more powdery. Very interesting. Oh, it's very good. That's very good. Spice. Let's see what happens. Remember, we added in our cinnamon, a little bit of cumin, caryophyllene. Oh, thank God. Okay. Okay. If we were to stop with the rosy materials and the violet and just stop there, we have our aromatics, the dihydromyrcenol, the musks, yada yada. Smells like a very elegant soap. Very elegant, very expensive soap. Yeah, it's that baby powder, the powdery floral note is what I get. But when we add the cinnamon, it does something. It takes the powderiness and it kind of hides it. And it takes that powderiness and moves it into a richer cinnamon direction. I'm not getting cinnamon per se, but it definitely tones down the powderiness of the fragrance in a way that's very, very enjoyable. Top. Now remember, we added a lot of Angelica Root. Let's see what happens. Barely noticeable. As far as that pickly side of the Angelica Root, what this does is it hangs on to that powderiness and gives it a freshness that is wonderful. Bright. Yeah, that acetate vibe is coming through. It gives a little pop. Whew. Okay, let's see if I can reset my nose a little bit before smelling skin. Wonderful. The brightness is a bit more subdued, but I'm getting that cinnamon powdery floral vibe on top of a nice, sweet, woody base. I'm interested to see how this dries down, because right now, when I look on Fragrantica, and again, I have not smelled this. I have not smelled this. It says woody, marine, salty, aromatic, and green. Woods are not one of the notes I'm getting right now. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of the cumin. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting more of the aromatic, floral aromatic notes. Whew, this is amazing. This smells very good. I'm going to put this in a tester. I'm probably also going to dilute this down to 20%, down from 22. I don't think that'll help much. This is strong, but it smells very good. It smells very good. If you have the ingredients, whip it up, give it a try. Make comments down below if you made any substitutions. And as always, thanks for joining.